I am really torturing my wrist with these booktube videos and just the stack of books that I keep having to hold up. But hi, hello, welcome back to your usual spot. This is gonna be a fun video. Look at that. Look at those thickums books. Because today I want to talk to you guys about sitting, living, and just engaging with bigger and thicker books and why you should do it. Because a lot of my recent it's heavy. Okay. Because a lot of my recent favorite books have been long books. This year I have Just Above My Head and I have The Morning Star. Both of those are above 500, more than 600 pages even. And I got to live with them for a very long time, and it reminds me why I love to read and just unlock so many new things in your brain. And I think a lot of people get scared with big thick books, especially with people getting concerned with reading speeds, how many books to read in a year. That also kind of gives you more of a reason why you should read big thick books. And as I did with my previous videos, I want to give you guys clear-cut reasons that I think, personally, I have benefited as a reader, both on an intellectual lens, but also just on an overall immersion and enjoyment lens, which, as someone who loves to read for pleasure, that's also very important to me. Apparently my mic wasn't on, now it is. But let's get to it. Let's talk about why you should read big chunky books and some of the big chunky books that I think are worth your time, just from my own reading experiences. I don't know where to put the books, guys. Also, before I start, it is very late right now. It's almost sunset and it's been cloudy and rainy, so I don't have natural sunlight. So I gotta do this fast. So why do you need to read bigger and thicker and longer books? It is not to be snobby. It is not so you feel superior to other people. It's not because of some TikTok trend telling you to do it. Nor is it to make you just look more impressive. Although, when I see people reading big thick books, I'm just like, the attention span. The attention span has not been totally ruined. But yes, we live in a world where everything is now optimized to be more bite-sized, short form. Even our opinions are just, okay, you need to be something snappy and sharp and quick and fast. At one point, it just seeps into every other aspect of your life where you're just constantly trying to optimize and be productive and be fast and get things done right away and finish new books and just read 3 books in a single day. And big, thick, long books kind of don't align with that. And I have 4 reasons that I think are great ways to look at these daunting, chunky books. Number 1, they slow you down. Quick context, I always set a reading goal every single year for around 52 books just because I know I can comfortably finish a book per week, even 2 books, but I don't like the pressure of it. I don't want to make myself read more than 1 book per week just because of that reading goal. But I still set it because I know I love reading and it's good for me, and sometimes I get distracted by other things in life that aren't as important. But sometimes even I would get pressured by the thought that, oh, I want to finish 2 books this week, just for no reason. And picking up a big thick book is the exact opposite of that. Picking up, seeing James Baldwin Just Above My Head calling me and telling myself, Shri, you need to commit to this for maybe 2 weeks. That's gonna break your own reading goal. And I love that defiance. I love being forced to slow down that way. And when you think about it, a lot of our reading nowadays have become shorter and shorter. Again, with our attention span, looking at short form videos, short form articles, looking at essays. People go to generative AI to ask for book summaries, which, what's the point of reading? They're making AI apps to summarize books. And a long book doesn't let you do that. It forces you to sit. It forces you to live with a book for a couple of days, even a couple of weeks. And the more you live with a book, the more you realize how much you've been rushing with the rest of your life, because you've been, reading a book for 2 weeks and you're only, 3/4 in? And it kind of feels nice that you get to live with a book for that long. And I really, really do appreciate and enjoy it. And that slowing down, I feel like, is something that's been missing in our more modern day lives. And a long book lets you do that. Number 2, long books train your attention. Pretty much in the same space, when everything is becoming short form, our attention spans are all over the place. And even as someone who reads, which is already, I would say, far better for our attention span than short form videos, YouTube, all of that. Short books, long form essays are still not as time investing. We still get distracted. But the thing about the way long books train your attention is not only that, hey, you're reading a long book, but when you live with characters and you live in a world within the book that is exploring themes and stories for a much longer period of time, you start to pay attention more to the details. Because longer books generally have a lot more, I don't want to say filler, but it has a lot more description, and you're forced to pay attention to things that aren't always exciting, and it's nice. It's a beautiful way of looking at literature. And being able to stay interested even when you don't have that constant novelty of new plot lines and plot twists happening every few pages just so the book would finish right away. Because a 100-page book will have its low moments and slow moments. It's a muscle in your brain that is getting trained, unlike with other shorter forms of literature, books, etc. Third, and probably one of my more favorite ones, is that long books change your relationship with characters and, well, books. Because you live with them. You get to see them across a longer time horizon. You see them at the very start of the book. You see them change. You see them grow. You see them make mistakes. And it builds the empathy that makes you feel like you know them in real life. Okay, that sounds very parasocial, but you get to understand people on a much deeper lens because of this. And last but not the least, which I think ties up every single point that I've mentioned so far, long books just throw every single productivity goal out of the window, which I guess is not really a formal benefit from it, but just forgetting about reading goals, forgetting about reading fast, forgetting about being productive and like, one book a week. It feels, again, what I said earlier, it feels like a defiance. It feels like you're rebelling against this productivity culture that you get a lot out of it, despite only reading one book for an extended period of time. So I mean, yes, it might look good. It might make you smarter. It might do a lot of things that would serve as a side benefit, but I think being able to slow down, training your attention, better empathizing with people, and just throwing productivity out of the window is always a nice reminder for me when I finish a big, thick book. It just feels like an accomplishment. And the thing is, I almost never regret it. And to be fair, I would DNF it if I don't like it earlier on, but also I'm literally like flashing my laptop in front of my face just so I have some lighting. I will show you guys very quickly how gloomy it is getting. It looks like it's about to rain. So that's what I'm dealing with lighting-wise, and let me get my brightness up. Okay, now let's get to big chunky books that I think are worth your time from my personal preferences. And this is a book that I read maybe 3-4 years ago, thinking that I would take months to finish it just because it's Marcel Proust. He's supposed to be this like amazing author, but also stream of consciousness, difficult read, all of that. I devoured this book. I think I finished it in 2 weeks. Swann's Away by Marcel Proust is one of my favorite classics of all time. This feels like some of the slowest reading experiences I've ever had in terms of just how my life moves with my reading, if that makes sense. It feels like as I'm reading this, my life itself is slowing down. It's allowing me to catch up to what's happening because the way Marcel Proust navigates time and memory is unlike any other. And the funny thing is, one of the main reasons why I picked up Marcel Proust's Swann's Way is my friend and I realized that both of our favorite books always mention Marcel Proust or In Search of Lost Time, or Swann's Way. And we're always just like, what does this mean? Yes, I know he's great with memory, he's good with stream of consciousness, but why is everyone so obsessed with him? It's like 7 books, if I remember it correctly. And then I read it, and I was like, if all of my favorite authors and favorite books mention it, there must be something great, amazing about this book. And they are very much correct. It is a stunning, stunning exploration of time and memory, and the way Proust feels like he's in love with remembering life and life itself, and he tries to stretch time as much as he can and looks at all of the details. And there's a famous Madeline scene earlier on in this book that I absolutely love and adore, and I remember I annotated to death. Yes, not as deathly annotated as I thought it would be, but stunning. And it's oh, never mind, it's across a couple of pages, and I remember really reading and rereading passages from this book so many times just because of how stunning and beautiful it is. So yes, it's a beautiful, stunning book that lets you view memory quite differently. And I think one of the early stream of consciousness writers as well. So a lot of writers nowadays probably got inspired by him as well. And just as someone who is not, I don't know if obsessed is the right word, but just really wants to remember his life as deeply as he can, Marcel Proust just feels like a natural, magnetizing author for me. I also have a copy of the second book somewhere out here, but I am saving it for a very specific time in my life, and I might be reading this sometime early next year. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But Swann's Way by Marcel Proust, stunner of a book, and I would gladly live in this once again. And before I go to the second book, I'll probably reread it as well. So, Swann's Way, Swann's Way. Also, I don't just read literary fiction, guys, because our next one will be Battle Royale by Koushun Takami. We're trying to diversify recommendations here, but I love and adore this book. I believe that Battle Royale is one of those early books that really influenced a lot of other literature when it comes to thrillers as well as just dystopian fiction. Battle Royale is about a country with a policy that sends kids into one island and they kill off each other. Fun. Because yes, it's a thriller, but there's also so much emotion at its core that what looks like, I don't know, Lord of the Flies, but with more advanced weapons and a heavier, more emotional backstory, it becomes very chaotic, very unhinged, but then you start seeing the emotional heart of it. I was crying by the end of this, by the way. Basically, in a way, because there are children, teenagers fighting against each other, somewhat of a requiem for youth, for empathy, and the fear in this book about having to make very tough decisions and how such a policy is being manifested in the world also begs very important questions and very important political contexts that I think Koushun Takami is able to very engagingly depict through his novel. But yes, it is a beautiful blend of, you get that fun thriller and just engaging, exciting read, but there's also that emotional and political lens to it that makes you ask very important questions, which I think is very much present in similar books that are within more of a dystopian and people fighting each other kind of books. But I highly recommend it. One of my favorite thrillers alongside Talented Mr. Ripley. I think those are my 2 favorite ones when it comes to this genre. But for big chunky books, this is more than worth it. More than worth it. Next, we have Tomb of Sand by Geetanjali Shri. Again, this is also a recent read. I read this back in March. And this is the type of long book that just flies past you. It is an amazing skill by the author, and especially as well the translator, to be able to translate something of this magnitude into something that's so digestible and readable and just engaging, and you don't even realize you're already halfway past the book because This is a book that, I don't want to say it's like a song, but there's a rhythm to it. The way each chapter flows from one to another. There is realism as well as more abstract ideas, and they just flow and dance between each other. You will get a chapter so short and crisp, and suddenly something you'll be thrown into the deep end of something a bit more dense and more abstract and more difficult. And it feels like you're dancing and trying to balance both at the same time and trying to keep up with what Geetanjali Shri is trying to put down. But it is a beautiful, beautiful depiction of what translated literature could mean. That for such a local context experience that discusses borders and languages can feel so universal and so important and so fascinating to someone who doesn't have much context on what the background of what's happening in this book is. Because Tomb of Sand is about an 80-year-old grandmother who just becomes listless and stops going out and doing anything after her husband dies, and she experiences grief. But one random day she stands up and with one of her daughters just goes on this wild, crazy adventure across borders. And borders doesn't only mean physical land borders. This also means languages. This also means even gender becomes a key discussion here, and the border between the male and the female, etc. And because of that grief context that you're getting, it's also a beautiful play on tone. Because as you're reading this book, she plays with time, she would stop herself mid-sentence, and she would also laugh amidst her grief. And it feels like such a funny way of showing how complex grief as an emotion could be, because you're discussing such morbid topics of death and just moving on and all of that, but then you're also laughing. Your life is also going on. And it's a beautiful work of fiction. And I feel like this is unlike a lot of books that I've read nowadays, the way it is able to do something experimental, but still very digestible. I didn't have a hard time at all reading this, just because of the sheer talent on writing and prose. And I highly recommend it. This is Tomb of Sand by Geetanjali Shri. Next one is probably my favorite book of the year and one of my favorite books of all time. And I read it this June. I think this still counts. It is more than 500 pages. This is Just Above My Head by James Baldwin. And what a book. I never thought there would be a book that would come close or even surpass Giovanni's Room as my favorite James Baldwin. But Just Above My Head did that. And I guess it kind of makes sense, because Just Above My Head is James Baldwin's last book. The last book he published, at least full-length novel he published in his career. And it just feels like a culmination of everything that he loves and cares about and is passionate about and has been writing about, fighting for many, many years. And you can see that come here. It feels like the moment you open the page, you feel that warmth. You feel the warmth, you also feel the anger, you also feel just like the love and care, and how love itself can manifest as just like being angry because of how much you care, and seeing how the world functions and how difficult it can be despite it. Sorry, am I understanding myself right now? I have to fix myself very quickly. But Just Above My Head is long, it's sprawling, it is unapologetically sentimental. It is documenting a group of people across many, many years. And it just feels like, we know James Baldwin and his relationship with religion and the gospel. This reads like a gospel. If one of the books that I will be mentioning later feels like a prayer, this one feels like a gospel or even a hymn. It just, I don't know, it sings. Because the way James Baldwin just writes about life is, you know how much he loves and cares about it. That's also why he's angry. That's also why he's fighting, because of that very same love and care. And I feel like this book captures that very beautifully, how love itself can both be a wound to you, but also a salvation, and what you're trying to fight for. And it just really has everything from queerness to faith to grief, music. It's everything. It's everything that I feel like James Baldwin has been to readers for many, many years in his life. So that is just above my head. I want to reread it already. Down to our last two books. I'm gonna save the best for last, which I feel like you guys know already. Next we have, if I didn't say it, highly recommend Just Above My Head by James Baldwin. Next we have Knausgaard's The Morning Star. Karl Ove Knausgaard is an author that I have been wanting to read for many years, specifically the My Struggle series, which is his, people say it's his masterpiece. And I am a bit intimidated because it is more than 5-6 parts. I have to double check that. And I was like, I'm not ready to commit to that. So I picked up Morningstar, not knowing it's also part of a series. But it's fine. We got it out of the way, we read it, and we fell in love. It is a stunning, stunning book, and it's the kind of long, thick book that I adore, but also just the style of writing. And I will say this, I've said this before, I will say this in this video, I will say this for the next book, and I'm gonna say it again in future videos. These Norwegian authors have me on a chokehold. Their introspection, the way they think about life, you'll have too much time on your hands. I wish I have the same, but thank you for imparting your knowledge. But Karl Ove Knausgaard's The Morning Star is, I would say, pretty simple at face value. Honestly, all of these Norwegian books are at face value. You are thrown into southern Norway, people living their lives, and this is across many different POVs, many different people. You're thrown into that small town in southern Norway, and suddenly people are living their lives, and there's a new, big, massive star in the sky. And for a few hours, people are fascinated. It disrupts everyday life, just like, hey, have you seen the big star in the sky? But then life goes on. And across all these POVs, you would start to see very strange things happening, but on a small scale. They're not enough to make you think that's messed up. What's causing this? It just feels like, oh, a bad thing happened in everyday life. But you as a reader, you get to have an outside point of view. You're seeing all of these happen within a span of 24, 48 hours, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, the morning star. And the funny thing is, that's basically the premise of the book. It is a book where nothing much happens. It's a beautiful exploration of the mundane. I feel like I've said that sentence before, and I will continue to say it again because it's my favorite type of book. I love books that are just carrying so much weight in the everyday, in when you're not paying the moments in life that you're not paying attention, those small things that make up the most of our lives, and these force you to pay attention to it. Those subtle nuances in the way we interact with people, our body languages, the small changes in language, mundane things that cover most of our life. This, I don't want to say a love letter, it doesn't feel like a love letter, but this feels like an ode to it. And Karl Ove Knausgaard is able to do that very effectively, very beautifully, and inject deeper weight into those everyday moments, whether it be more intensely philosophical, which he sometimes gets, or just it makes you pay attention. And sometimes paying attention in and of itself is already more than enough, and it makes you think about your own life as well. And that's why I love The Morning Star by Karl Ove Knausgaard, and I already bought the second book because apparently different set of characters, same situation with the star. I don't know how he's gonna pull it off because when it's gonna move, but I am intrigued, and I love the style of writing. I love the mood it puts me in. And as I was saying earlier of why I love reading large, thick, big books, this is exactly it. I get to live with it. I get to fully embrace and experience it across many different pages. So that is The Morning Star by Mr. Karl Ove Knausgaard. And I'm kidding. How can I be done about big, chunky books without talking about the best book of all time? Am I committing it now? I said a couple months ago I don't want to commit it, but the more I think about it, I think this is the best book I have ever read in my entire life. The only possible book that could fight it would be Night Sky with Exit Wounds versus Ocean Vuong by Ocean Vuong. But that one's a poetry collection. This one's a novel, so maybe they can both be first. Anyway, I'm gonna stop prolonging it, but sound effects. Guys, take a photo of me with Septology. I'm kidding. Guys, that's a stunning cover. It's a stunning cover. That's a stunning cover. Before I even talk about this book, let me read to you the passage at the back. And I apologize in advance. I don't speak Norwegian, and I'm doing this very last minute, but I want to read you guys what it says at the back, which is, that's the reason I bought it. What makes us who we are, and why do we lead one life and not the another? Asle, an aging painter and widower who lives alone on the southwest coast of Norway, is reminiscing about his life. His only friends are his neighbor, Ajlik, a traditional fisherman farmer, and Bayer, a gallerist who lives in the city. There, in Bergen, lives another Asle, also a painter, but lonely and consumed by alcohol. Asle and Asle are doppelgangers. Two versions of the same person, two versions of the same life, both grappling with existential questions about death, love, light and shadow, faith and hopelessness. Septology is a transcendent exploration of the human condition by Jon Fosse, the 2023 Nobel Prize in Literature laureate, and a radically other reading experience, incantatory, hypnotic, and utterly unique. That's it. I'm done. If that doesn't sell it to you, nothing will. Okay, let's be serious for a moment. So I feel like I'm extra, not want to say I'm prepared. I'm extra casual today. I have had a bit of a weekend and I just needed like a mental break, and this is my mental break, yapping about books with you guys. But this is a Septology by Jon Fosse, my favorite book of all time. Another book by a Norwegian author. Another book that explores the mundane. And another book that I love and adore. I love and adore. Guys, I got this shipped from the UK. A signed copy by Jon Fosse. Number 488 of 1,000. If that doesn't show you how much I love it, nothing will. Anyway, I first discovered Septology by Jon Fosse. I forgot when. It was when one of the 3 books. So this is actually 3 books combined into one, Septology. One of the 3 books, when it was still an ongoing series, won or was nominated for the International Booker Prize. And again, the Nobel Prize and the International Booker Prize are 2 literary prizes that I follow. Those are probably the only 2 that I follow. I got intrigued the first time with International Booker Prize, but it was still not done. The series wasn't done, and I didn't want to commit to it before it was done. And then he won the Nobel, and the 3rd book was out, and I was like, I think it's time. And I read the back of the blurb of the book, the back of the blurb of the book, the blurb at the back of the book, and that was more than enough reason for me. That was more than enough reason for me to pick it up, and in a span of 2 weeks. I still think about those 2 weeks to this day, because I would go home from work, or I would go from my home to the cafe, and I would read for maybe an hour or 2 every day for 2 weeks. And I feel like those were some of the most peaceful, most meditative periods of my last few years. As I was saying earlier about how long books slow me down, I feel like Jon Fosse just took that to times 10. The way his writing goes with the, as they said, hypnotic, it feels like I was meditating, as I was reading his book. It feels like I was in the middle of a prayer that just keeps going on and on and on, but not in a purely religious lens, but more spiritually. It feels like an author who is really trying his best to understand the depths of life through the lens of the mundane. through the lens of the what ifs and through the lens of the very big questions that we ask ourselves in the life. And this really feels like just an absolute masterpiece of a work that I recommend to people, but I also do recognize that it might not be for everyone's taste. Septology is a book that doesn't have a single sentence, doesn't have a single period up until the very last page. And actually, let me double check if it even has a... No, it's a book without a period. It's a book without a period. It's just one long sentence that keeps going on and on and on and on for more than 800 pages. And that's basically it. You go through time and memory within the same sentence, which might sound daunting. It also looks quite daunting because those paragraphs are a bit intense. But it feels like a book that you can just drift in and out of. You need to read the whole book. You cannot just skim it, but it also feels like the moment you start reading, you just get lost in it. But the moment you start looking for something in particular, the moment you start looking for a plot, you're gone. You will find it boring. It's not going to be for you. But if you're willing to sit with a character who's trying to figure out his life, who's trying to go through the motions of memory and time and try to answer and ask these very difficult questions, then this is a book that you were going to fall in love with and just love and adore. And guys, I love this book so much. I love this book so much. I want to reread it soon, but my goal for this winter is to read this other book, Melancholy 1 and 2. Then maybe I'll save this for next winter. Yeah. God. What a book. Sorry. I hope I made sense, guys. I am getting more casual by the day, which I'm quite happy with. I used to be so intimidated being in front of a camera and just wanting to get all of my thoughts making my thoughts come across properly. And I always get scared of being misunderstood and being dramatic. I'm scared of people misconstruing what I'm saying. So I always try to be perfectly clear when I'm saying these things. But I'm also happy that I just get to naturally say my thoughts. I have some talking points. I do prepare those just because I want to give the books justice, but being able to just naturally yap about them is also quite nice. So, but there you have it. These are some books that I think will be great for your brain, will be great for your attention span, and will just be great for you overall. And I really, really do hope you give it a try because my hands are giving up. And I want to know what are your favorite big, thick books? What are those books that are the hill that you will die on? That you will sing to high heavens for? That you will recommend to every single person you meet? Because I'm looking for more. I have my own personal TBR for big, thick books, but I want to hear your thoughts. And if you stuck around, thank you so much. I hope the lighting isn't too bad, and I'll see you back at a usual spot.